Sahadehen manena vardhamanena manyuna karoti vigraham kami kameshvantaya chatmanaha. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. So, Saha with Dehena, the body, Manena with false prestige, Vardhamanena, increasing, Manyuna on account of anger, Karoti, he creates, Vigraham, enmity, Kami, the lusty person, Kamishu, towards the other lusty people, An- Antya, for destruction, Cha, and Atmataha, Atmanaha, of his soul. Translation. With the growth of body, the living entity, in order to vanquish his soul, increases his false prestige and anger, and thereby creates enmity towards similarly lusty people. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, verse 36, Arjun inquired from Krishna about the cause of a living being's lust. It is said that living entity is eternal and as such qualitatively one with the Supreme Lord. And what is the reason he falls prey to the material and commits so many sinful activities by the influence of the material energy? In reply to this question, Lord Krishna said that it is lust which causes a living entity to glide down from his exalted position to the abominable condition of material existence. This lust circumstantially changes into anger. Both lust and anger stand on the platform of the mode of passion. Lust is actually the product of the mode of passion, and in the absence of satisfaction of lust, the same desire transforms into anger on the platform of ignorance. When ignorance covers the soul, it is the source of his degradation to the most abominable condition of hellish life. To raise oneself from the hellish life to the highest position of spiritual understanding is to transform this lust into love of Krishna. Sri Narottam Das Thakur, a great acharya of the Vaishnava Sampradaya, said, Kama Krishna Karma Pane. Due to our lust, we want many things for our sense gratification. But the same lust can be transformed in a purified way so that we want everything for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anger also can be utilized towards a person who is atheistic or who is envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As we have fallen into this material existence because of our lust and anger, the same two qualities can be utilized for the purpose of advancing in Krishna consciousness. And one can elevate himself again to his former pure spiritual position. Srila Rupa Goswami has therefore recommended that because in material existence we have so many objects of sense gratification which we need for the maintenance of the body, we should use all of them without attachment for the purpose of satisfying the sense of Krishna, that is actual renunciation. Text 30. Bhutaihi panchabhirarabdhe dehe deyu bodho sakruta aham me matya sadgraha karoti kumatir matim. Bhutai, by material element. Panchabhi, 5. Arabdhe, made. Dehe, in the body. Dehi, the living entity. Abudha, ignorant. Askrata, constantly. Aham, I. Mama, mine. Iti, thus. Asat, non-permanent things. Graha, accepting. Karoti, he does. Kumatihi, being foolish. Matim, part. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. By such ignorance, the living entity accepts the material body, which is made of 5 elements, as himself. With this misunderstanding, he accepts non-permanent things as his own and increases ignorance in the darkest region. Purport. The expansion of ignorance is explained in this verse. The first ignorance is to identify one's material body, which is made of 5 elements, as the self. And the second is accept something as one's own due to bodily connection. This way, ignorance expands. The living entity is eternal, but because of his accepting non-permanent things, misidentifying his interest, he is put into ignorance. Therefore, he suffers material pain. नमां विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाशातदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Thank you, assembled Vaishnavas, for giving this opportunity to speak for my own purification. I will summarize today's verses from the lecture given by senior acharyas and some purports by Srila Prabhupada. Please forgive me if I add my own meaning or interpretation to this. So, as living entity grows, his false ego increases by identifying self with the body and bodily relationships. He thinks of only me and mine, and sense gratification for own self becomes his only priority. And in that mode, he commits so many sins. So in Bhagavad Gita 3.36, Arjuna asks, by what is that one is compelled to the sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? So although the living entity sometimes does not want to act in sin, he is still forced to act. Sinful reactions are not impelled by the super soul within, but are due to another cause, as Lord explains in answers in next verse. And Lord Krishna says that it is lust only, Arjun, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transform into wrath, which is all devouring sinful enemy of this world. So when living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust in association with the modes of passion. In other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust. Just like a milk in contact with a sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. And then again, when the lust is unsatisfied, it turns into wrath. Then wrath is transformed into illusion. Then illusion continues the material existence. Therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity. And it is lust only which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world. Now, wrath or anger is the manifestation of mode of ignorance. These modes exhibit themselves as a wrath and are other coloring. So, if um, the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness by prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment. So the Supreme Personality of God had expanded himself into many for his ever increasing spiritual bliss. And the living entities are parts and parcel of spiritual bliss. They also have a partial independence, but the misuse of this independence, um, and when the service attitude is transformed into the propensity for sense enjoyment, then they come under the sway of the lust. So this material creation is created by the Lord to give a facility to conditioned souls to fulfill these lustful propensities. And when completely baffled by the prolonged lustful activities, finally the living entities begin to inquire about their real position. So in Bhagavad Gita 16.21, Lord Krishna again explains that there are three gates leading to the hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give this up, for they had to the because they lead to the degradation of soul. So the Lord explains the beginning of the demonic life here. One tries to satisfy his lust, and when he cannot, then anger and greed arise. A sane man who does not want to glide down to the species of demoniac life must try to give up these three qualities, three enemies, which can kill the self to the extent that there will be no possibility of liberation from this material entanglement. So the origin of lust is also in the Supreme. Therefore, lust is transformed into love for the Supreme or transformed into Krishna consciousness. Or, in other words, desiring everything for Krishna. Then both lust and wrath can be spiritualized. Like Hanumanji, Lord Hanuman is a great example. He is the great servitor of Lord Ram, and he exhibited his wrath by burning the golden city of Ravan. But by doing so, he became the greatest devotee of the Lord. So here also in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord induces Arjun to engage his wrath upon his enemies for the satisfaction of the Lord. Therefore, lust and wrath, when they are employed in Krishna consciousness, becomes our friends instead of enemies. In the material world, everyone is engrossed with the idea of identifying with the body or mind with the self. But all the knowledge disseminated in the material world is also related either with the body or with the mind. And that is the root cause of all problems. So this is not always detected, even though like some of the greatest scholar in the material knowledge, they are also suffering from the same problem that they are identifying themselves with the body and mind, and then they are suffering. So therefore, it is good to approach a devotee to solve the root cause of all these problems. So identification with the material body is due to forgetfulness of our eternal relationship with the Lord. Lord Krishna is just like a sun, and the illusory or external material energy is like a darkness. In the presence of the sun, there is no possibility that darkness can stand. So that's why Bhagavad Gita was delivered to the conditioned souls of the world to deliver them from the wrong conception of identifying the body with the soul and to re-establish the soul's eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord. Atma Vidya, or transcendental knowledge of himself, was the primarily spoken by the Lord for the benefit of all the concerned in all part of universe. So that's the message given in this